Okay, so history of youth count and the point in time counts. That's my little section here. So the first slide, why is collecting data important? Collecting this data is critically important because it shows convincing evidence that the problem exists in the capital region. Many of us as providers know that this problem exists from our personal experience, from those who show up in our programs, but through the years we have found that there does not exist clear, convincing data. Why do we need clear and convincing data? Because we want to translate that data into action. We want to develop programs and services that meet the needs of homeless youth. We want to use that data to raise awareness of elected officials. And hopefully that data will become a compelling part of our story, which will lead to developing effective programs and programs that would be consistent with the Interagency's Council on Homelessness to end youth homelessness by 2020. So next is the strengths and weaknesses of the HUD point in time. As many of you know, HUD requires entities across the U.S. to once a year do a HUD point in time. Our group, we know from that experience that young people are not really captured or adequately captured in that data. We felt we need a very specialized approach to counting youth in our community, and that is why our committee was formed. Youth are particularly difficult to count, as many of us know, because they are often not on the streets, but in equally as dangerous and vulnerable positions, couch surfing, trading sex for a place to stay, couch surfing, and engaging in sexual trafficking, which puts them in an extraordinarily high risk. That sort of consists of the challenges of counting homeless youth, because it's sort of an underground population. We all know it exists, but it's very difficult to know where to count them and how to count them. Next slide. So because of all of what I've just discussed, CARES, with the support of CARES, and they've given us a tremendous amount of support, the Capital Region Homeless Youth Advisory Board was formed almost 2 years ago. The board consists of local providers, representatives from state agencies, and other stakeholders. Our mission is somewhat narrow because our vision is to provide accurate data that leads to strong, effective solutions that will end youth homelessness in the Capital Region. Our mission is to provide leadership, develop, advocate, and coordinate community strategies to accurately count homeless. And that has been our primary focus over the past 2 years. Last year was our first count in the Capital Region. We considered it a pilot project. There were some rough edges. This year we're going to do it again on October 13th, and we think we've learned quite a bit from last year's count, and we look forward to working with everyone who's volunteered or everyone that's involved and signed on to help us make this the most successful one. Thank you. I'm going to turn it now over to Melanie Puerto.
Hi,
Conti.
this is Melanie, and I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things. I'm going to talk about the review of the data sets that we use to help gather that accurate data so that we can have strong and effective programs, and I'm also going to go over the actual tool that we are using for the youth count. So first I'm going to talk about the data sets that we're using, the actual youth surveys, which, as I said, we are going over. The HMIS data, and Sam will chime in to pick up on anything that I might have forgotten, and the data from the homeless liaisons, who are going to be part of a very strong role this time. We've really made an all-out effort in the past 2 or 3 months to ensure that the homeless liaisons from the school districts are fully engaged. Okay, so let's talk about those data sets. So the first thing that we look at, and as I said, I'm going to be going over it in a minute, are our youth surveys, which is done on the street, the surveys of the youth within the demographic range who may be struggling with housing issues. We're using this survey to understand the scope of homelessness in our communities within the catchment area, and as Mary said, within the different nuances from the HUD point in time, which is in January, and this point in time, hoping to find those youth who are couch surfing, not easily identifiable. So we think that we're going to be able to get a really good handle on that. And the age range is 13 to 21. We also are using the youth surveys to get firsthand knowledge of youth homelessness issue and housing instability in our catchment area. And that's very important to have a good handle on that so that we know the nature of the need and the gaps of service in each of the communities that we serve. We also use the youth surveys as an effective tool to understand the demographics and underlying issues in each community and the capital region as a whole. And we also work with local leads responsible for coordinating surveys because our local leads are very ingrained in an integral part of their community, so it helps to have that local contact who's responsible within their community. Next, I'm going to talk about the HMIS data. CARES will be coordinating the collection of HMIS data from the system, and that captures basic demographics. Sam, you want to say a little bit about what those demographics are?
Hi, this is Maureen. So we'll be able to take a look at information about age, race, basically the universal data elements in HMIS. And we will be able to look at the length of stay for the current, well, should I go on about the? Okay. Yep. So we'll be able to look at how long an individual has been in either shelter or transitional housing, where they were coming from the night before they entered for that program stay. And we'll also be able to see their household composition, so whether they're unaccompanied under 18, unaccompanied over 18, and then whether or not they're a parenting youth and what the composition of that family looks like.
Okay, thank you.
I might jump in for a second.
Sure.
Just for this is Andy Gilpin from Captain Youth and Family Services. For those who don't know what the HMIS system is, I'm sorry about that.
That's right. I was gonna
If you're, yeah.
No, you can go for it.
Okay, it's the Homeless Management Information System, and basically all organizations who are either part of a continuum or get a continuum of care or receive money, federal or state, to run sheltering programs, transitional living, maternity group homes, and many others. Enter data into this system to give basic case management, but also show the demographics or who are going to be there. So for the point in time count, we're going to look at all those organizations in the capital region who input data into the HMIS system that provide the emergency shelter, transitional living, group homes, things where youth within that age group would be staying that night.
And also within that, prevention programs that are federally funded are captured in the HMIS data, which can help us at a future point in time see how well prevention programs are working to help prevent youth homelessness. So data will be collecting from the youth and the homeless services on the night of October 12th through the day of October 13th, 24-hour period, so that we capture all times of the day, and that will enable us to see a number of different scenarios and areas where youth might congregate. You know, particularly if youth may be in school, so we might not see them, but then there are those youth who are disengaged who might be hanging out in the various hot spots in your community. So the next data point comes from our homeless liaison data, and as I said, we have really worked hard to enhance that this year, Laura French from the New York State Office of Temporary Disability Assistance, OTDA, will be coordinating the collection of data from the Capital Region homeless liaisons within each school district. They all received a letter in August alerting them that we would be making contact with them, and the expectation that they provide data, which we hope will eliminate any questions, concerns, or barriers that have been presented in the past. So we really hope this improves the data path, and we are very confident that it will. The Youth Count utilizes the McKinney-Vento Act, definition of homelessness, which allows for school districts to report on homeless students. And that's often, as I said, a place that we haven't always had really good access to, so we hope this will really add a very important extra layer of data. So we're asking school districts to report the total number of homeless youth ages 13 to 21, and then of those, how many are considered unaccompanied? That is, that they're without a parent or guardian. Then our last data point is understanding the youth survey. And in a few moments, I'll be going over it with you. But there's a question-by-question review of the youth survey, which I will do. Understanding what questions we are asking and why. And we've worked many months on fine-tuning this survey tool. We've learned a number of lessons, as Mary said, so we think that we will be getting the information that we need and want from this survey. The survey is completely voluntary, and youth do not need to answer it if they don't want to or feel uncomfortable. So at this point, if you can get your survey and put it in front of you so that we can review. Okay. Everybody have their survey? Nod yes. Okay. Everybody's nodding yes. Good. Okay, so question one, again, as we talked about, for demographic purposes, and most importantly, so that we get an accurate count for reducing deduplication purposes only. So we're asking for initials, and then the date of birth. That should be pretty straightforward, but there may be a few youth who choose not to give initials. And sometimes we've had youth who are a little bit fearful of us capturing any data about them. So you get what the youth is comfortable with giving you. Second question, did you stay with a parent or guardian last night? Yes, usually pretty straightforward. Sometimes someone is not clearly a guardian or not clearly a parent, but they may choose to indicate that they are, or no, say if they're staying with friends, couch surfing, or they prefer not to answer. Question number 3, do you have a permanent place to stay? Yes, no, don't know, or prefer not to answer. Now this means that they have a stable place to stay. Not that they're couch surfing. So you may have to define that a little bit for them. And again, some may say don't know because they don't know how long permanent is. And 3A is how long have you been without a permanent place to stay? For example, if a youth has been couch surfing 3 months, 6 months, 1 night, that's where you need to indicate that. They have the option of saying they don't know how long they've been without a permanent place to stay because they may have been moving around from house to house and couch to couch for a number of different time periods. And again, they have the option to prefer not to answer. So question 4, where did you spend the night last night? If they were sheltered, did they stay in a shelter such as Captain's or SAFE, emergency or temporary shelter? Are they living in transitional housing? Are they living in a hotel or motel? Are they living at the home of a person they're having sex with? Are they staying at a friend's home? Are they unsheltered? Have they slept in a car or vehicle last night? Are they staying in an abandoned building, vacant unit, place not meant for human habitation? On a train, bus, or train or bus station, anywhere outside street, park, or viaduct? And as the weather has been quite nice, you may find more youth in those types of locations at this point. Other, a hospital emergency room, a residential treatment facility, juvenile detention center or jail. Other, that they might specify, or they don't know, or they prefer not to answer. Now, potentially permanent. You may encounter a youth who has just gone into their own apartment or house, or living in their parents' house, or another relative's home, foster family home, group home, or the home of a boyfriend or girlfriend. And you can ask follow-up questions if their answers are unclear. You can ask, what do you mean by that? Can you tell me more? Can you give me the name and location? What relation is this person to you? When we talk about a parent or guardian, and if they say the person is neither, you can further ask, what is the relation of this person to you? Is there anything you have to do or give to sleep here? Those are the kinds of questions that you can answer to help get clarity. And then after you've ascertained where they spent the last night, you can ask, can you stay there again tonight? Again, yes, no, don't know, or prefer not to answer. You follow up with, how long can you stay at this location? Again, they'll give a response of a day, a week, a month, don't know, or prefer not to answer. Question 5, can you stay there again tonight? Again, yes, no, don't know, prefer not to answer. If they answer yes or don't know, you move on to 5A about how long can you stay at this location, and you get their response, whether it can be 12 hours, 10 days, 1 night. They may not know, and that's okay, or they prefer not to answer. We move on to question 6. What county did you stay in last night? Albany, Schenectady, Columbia Green, Rensselaer, Saratoga, Warren, Washington, or other. For instance, they may be...
McSherry.
For example, they may be from Schenectady County, but for some reason they stayed in Montgomery County last night. So you would mark that down, especially if you encounter them in your home community and they're from your home community, but they stayed in another county. And what is your home county? That leads to what I was just talking about. Are they from Albany County, Schenectady County, Columbia Green, Rensselaer, Saratoga, Warren, Washington, or other? Because as we know, we do have youth migrate from other counties other than our capital region, so you would capture that there. Number 8, what would you say is the main reason for your current state of housing? And this only applies if they're not in a permanent place to stay. You can choose multiple options as applicable, the first being conflict with parent or guardian. They had been kicked out, or conflict with parent or guardian and they ran away. Substance abuse issues, could be their own, could be their parents. Not enough space at parent or guardians. Family is homeless, or they were evicted from their own place, or they prefer not to answer. Or they had issues with sexual identity. Again, you can check multiple boxes on this, or multiple circles as the case may be. How about abuse? Was there physical or sexual abuse happening in the home that they were staying at? Do they have to pay rent at their parent or guardians? Do they have mental health issues? Other issues that are not listed? Or they don't know what the reason is for their current state of housing. Question number 9. Have you ever run away? If so, how many times? So if they answer yes, you would ask them the number of times. Sometimes they'll prefer not to answer. Have you ever been in foster care? Again, yes, no, don't know, or prefer not to answer. Do you have any children of your own? If so, how many? Have you ever been in juvenile detention? Yes, no, don't know, or prefer not to answer. As I said, some youth are going to be reluctant to answer, especially if It's youth you don't know that you don't have an established relationship with. Question 13, have you ever been to jail? Yes, no, don't know, or prefer not to answer. Question 14, has this, answers to 12 or 13, have you been in juvenile detention or been to jail, stopped you from attaining housing? Yes, no, don't know, prefer not to answer. And you may try to draw out a little narrative from them about when they might not have been able to get housing. Additional demographic questions. What gender do you prefer to be identified as? Response, male, female, transgender, male to female, transgender, female to male, other, or prefer not to answer. Question 2, what ethnic background do you prefer to be identified as? White, European, American Indian, Alaska Native, other, Black, African American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, don't know, Asian, multiple races, prefer not to answer, or Latino, Hispanic. And question number 3, the additional demographic questions. Which of the following do you prefer to be identified as? Response. Straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, queer, questioning, other. Okay. And then there's a space for additional comments, feedback that you need us to know in completing the survey. And that's it for the count survey.
Excellent, excellent presentation, Melanie. Just excellent. I do want to add that no one should feel compelled to draw out youth on any of these questions if they choose not to. The important thing is just to get through the survey. Although, as Melanie mentioned, there are little tips on the side of the survey if it seems comfortable for you and the youth to begin a conversation. Okay?
Excellent. Sounds like it's my turn. So, this is, again, Andy Gilpin from Captain Youth and Family Services. So I'm going to talk a little bit about interacting with youth on the streets. So actually doing the survey on the streets. We do have a question and answer session at the end if anything comes up with questions about the survey, how to administer the survey, any of those things that come up during this webinar. We'll try to answer there and hopefully fill in people who may be watching this webinar later. So if you do have some questions that came to mind, please ask them. It probably helps out later as well, too. So just for background, Captain Youth and Family Services runs a street outreach program. That street outreach program's been running successfully for many years, over 10 for sure. We have partners in various other counties as well. So we primarily focus on Saratoga for a long time, but now we've actually grown the program. So it's Saratoga, Fulton, Montgomery, Warren, Washington. But we have partners that help us out with Warren, Washington, and Saratoga as well. But so we have a lot of experience on the street interacting with youth. The whole mission around street outreach is to engage with youth, gain their trust, develop rapport, so when they're ready to leave the streets, they know they have an advocate that will help them through that. And also Safe Inc. has a wonderful street outreach program, and Lizanne with St. Anne's, and there's multiple people running great street outreach programs, all with that same mission. But so on those same lines about approaching youth, just remember that this survey is designed to be research-based. So the idea is to gather information, not to do much case management on the street. So we made a decision early on that that's what the goal was, to collect data. So view it in that manner, that when approaching youth and when we're talking with youth, it is really from a research-based point of view. So one thing to know, with street youth, with homeless youth, with those youth who are either couch surfing or maybe trading sex for a place to stay or any of those other things, they're very skeptical, not easily trust. They don't develop trust very easily. They've had, been burned a bunch of times in the past and have been taken advantage of. They may view situations where somebody's trying to get something out of them. But if we approach them in a very open manner, let them know what our intentions are right off the bat. We just need to ask you a few questions based on a survey we have, a tool. We'd really love your help to get some better understanding of what it looks like, what homelessness looks like, or housing instability looks like, or those at risk of losing their housing looks like in the capital region for youth, we may be able to bring them in as partners and a way to help us out with our goal. So I think Mary already said it, but the youth survey is very voluntary. So we want to make sure that if youth say they're not interested in helping out with it, we don't have to try to draw it out of them or try to talk them into it in some way. It is voluntary. We also want to be non-intrusive as much as possible, but gather data that youth are willing to share. So thinking about that. The data really, we want to convince them or talk with them, make sure they understand it is going to be anonymous. We do ask for the birth date at the top or initials, but that's really only deduplication. And you can explain that to them. We just need a way to find, once we get all these surveys together, which could be hundreds of surveys, we need a way to make sure we're not overlapping with the same person. Which goes when you're actually giving that survey to talk with the youth to say, hey, has anybody ever talked to you today about this or yesterday, or depending on the survey, have you filled one of these out before? And that will also help with that deduplication. But know that when you talk with youth, we're not collecting this information for any other purpose than just the research, the study, the data, and it will be completely anonymous. So that'll help hopefully open up the door, get them to talk a little bit more about their situation, and give you that basic demographic and research-based information we're looking for. So again, one more thing, just we're looking for them to be a partner in the process. Sometimes we have said to them, this is really going to help the larger group. It's going to be helping people in the future for your similar situation, or people we know around the capital region who might be in your situation. Can you just spend a few minutes talking with us so we can help them in a better way? So empowering them, helping them understand what the greater good of what we're trying to do here. The big thing with our street outreach program is we go in pairs. I think that's going to be important for this survey. So as the leads from the various counties are getting their teams together and thinking about team structure and where they will go and the hot spots they will hit and how they will distribute the survey and talk with youth, we really want to focus on having two people. It just becomes unsafe if one person is out there by themselves. Now, there are plenty of talented people who may be able to go out there and do this survey on their own. We will leave it up to each of the county leads to determine those kind of things, but our recommendation is a pair. That gives you a few advantages. One, you can work together, help identify youth that might be in a homeless, at-risk situation, unstably housed, provides that safety structure, a way to bounce back and forth. If you run into a large group of people, you can talk to multiple kids at the same time. There's just a lot of advantages around having two or more, but don't get to a too large a group as well either. So we don't want to intimidate or overwhelm kids as you come up and talk with them. But it's really mostly on the safety side of things. And when approaching youth on the streets, you have to use some common sense. I think that's what we're looking for this. Don't put yourself in a situation that seems unsafe. If your gut's telling you that the youth is, for whatever reason, not in the right space, could be emotional problems, could be behavior problems around drugs and alcohol or other substance abuse, may not be best to approach that youth at that time. We're not looking to put anybody in harm's way with this. So just use your best judgment when approaching, but before you would approach a youth or a group of youth, talk with your partner. Just say, hey, does this seem like the right group? Do a quick rundown as far as some safety considerations, as far as how does this group look? Do they look approachable? Is there a problem? If it seems that they're participating in some sort of activity that may be illegal or otherwise, maybe stay away from that group and come back later. Again, safety is paramount here. But if you identify a youth or a group that seems that they're going to be a good candidate for this survey, then we would approach and ask if they'd be willing to help. And again, in just a friendly, open manner, let them know right off the bat what we're doing. Keep it simple. I would ask that possibly the county leads find a quick elevator speech that works for everybody. It's sort of a unified message that goes out. This is why we're here. This is what we're doing. This is who I am. Introducing yourself just helps put youth at ease a little bit to know that there's not some sort of ulterior motive again, or there's something that you're trying to get out of them other than just some basic information. One advantage as well that might help us out with this, we have a generous donation from The Community Foundation provided a grant last year for the youth count. We did not use up all those funds last year, so we are this year going to be purchasing gift cards or Subway cards, or not Subway in a transportation way, but Subway in food way, cards, or McDonald's, or it'll be a simple gift card, $5. We would ask that that is not sort of the lead with the survey. We're asking the youth to participate in the survey, but if they start the survey, you can say, by the end of this, we're giving out gift cards, so I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. So I think it's just a way to give back for the time that they're and effort they're putting in, and the valuable data we're getting from them. So know that may also kind of ease into conversation and be another way to help open youth up to talking with us about this. So other things about approaching youth on the street, just be aware also of your surroundings, of where you're going. Public places are primary. Look to not. We wouldn't suggest you look too far into places where youth are squatting, say they're abandoned buildings or other things like that. We would much rather you stay in a public place. So looking at those hotspots that youth can hang out, where free Wi-Fi is, other coffee houses or places where they can be, that they can get access to charging phones or other kinds of things, but it's in a I won't say very, but it's in a public enough place that you feel comfortable talking to them, they feel comfortable talking to you. And I think that might be it. Yeah. Oh, and I would also say, just to think about with your volunteers, again, this is data-driven, research-driven. It's not about asking a question and then making any sort of judgment on that question. All right, so really be clear with your volunteers. If you're grabbing volunteers from outside the community, so let's call it faith groups, students, other things like that, you are not reacting to the response that a youth gives you. And then for those of you who have the social work background and have that heart to kind of dive in there and deal with issues, we're going to have to rein you back a little bit. We're not trying to solve problems on the street, but we're going to also ask that the leads provide a simple, and many of the street outreach teams already have this, so it's kind of embedded in what they do, but a simple resource guide that if youth do present to you and say, hey, I don't have anywhere to stay, I didn't stay, I stayed in the park last night, I don't know where I'm going tonight, you can give them the resources there, and maybe even help facilitate that a little bit. Let them use your phone if you want to call in to make a referral for a shelter. Call a street outreach team. It might be able to help come in and deal with that. But again, not the case management side of things or the data side. And again, non-judgmental. So youth can disclose anything they want. We're looking to get that information and not make any kind of judgments based on that. The temptation sometimes is maybe to react to a question that the youth has given a statement towards. Why would you do that? My gosh, any of those kind of things. So keep it non-judgmental. Know that this work is really just good work to provide for a larger picture of how we provide services, we being the collective of the Youth Advisory Board and all the great agencies that are doing the work with youth homelessness. This is going to empower us to provide more funding for these kind of projects, getting more teams out there in the street if need be, providing shelter beds, and really just answering the need that we see, we know is there, and the youth know it's there too. So getting them to help out with that.
Thank you, Andy. That was a wonderful presentation by both Melanie and Andy. And now we're going to ask if anyone has any questions.
Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One more just to review the
Oh,
book.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Oh, forget that.
Soon.
I thought you said, I guess that wraps it up.
No,
Okay.
no.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's
Okay.
no problem.
So the last thing is the data collection. Once you've completed all your surveys and everything on Friday, I ask that Monday the 16th, leads bring their surveys to CARES and drop them off with me. So my name's Samantha Winsenreid. I'm on the Continuum of Care side. If you can leads bring them, or if the leads have someone else that they want to bring them, that's fine. But I would ideally like them by Monday, the 16th. If you need additional arrangements or anything else, just email me and let me know so I can keep track of every lead that we've sent out there and make sure I have the full data so we can start compiling all the information. If you are a lead and purchase gift cards, I need the receipts and the extra cards also on Monday when you drop off the surveys. If you used a gift card, there needs to be a survey to replace it almost.
That may be, let me jump in for a second, Sam. That may be a great thing. If you have your survey you filled out and gave a gift card, a little note on that survey that a gift card went with that would be a great way to kind of help us track and know how many things went out there and compare the two. Just, it's probably been said, I'll say it again. Hardest part about getting surveys is make sure you're using the right survey. All right. So we're really stressing it this year. The leads should all know this, but we're going to say it again for everybody on the webinar. Please go to the CARES website. If you go to the CARES website, which we can provide there in a second, and maybe we can actually walk people through.
Yep.
Would that be okay? Okay, so Sam's
Yep.
going to walk us through how you get the actual survey.
So if you go to the CARES website, which is caresny.org, you go to the Continuum of Care side. You can go to any of the continuums. I usually go to Albany because it's first. So if you go to Albany,
Can you put that up by chance?
oh, it's not up there. Oh, I'm so sorry.
We'll give it a second. We're going to put it up there.
All right, so let's go back one more step. So if you go to the CARES website and you go to the Continuum of Care up at the top, I go down to Albany, and all the way at the bottom is the Capital Region Advisory Committee on Youth Homelessness. If you click on that link, you'll see this section called the Youth Count Point in Time 2017. This is the survey you want to be giving out. It will lead you to this PDF. You can print it out. It's two-sided. So there are 2 pages, but this is the survey that we're giving out this year. This is how you should get the survey. Don't go find it in an email. Go to the website and print out the survey from here.
And it should say final survey 10/13/2017.
Yep, right up here in the top.
Great. And we're sorry we're not mass producing the surveys for everybody and handing them out. We just felt it would be easier to do it this way. So I appreciate all the leads and any agencies and volunteers who are participating in this and using their copiers and whatnot to produce that. Thank you very much. Along those same lines, we had talked a couple times about how to kind of carry around the survey and give it out. So if you did have a clipboard, if you wanted to have the clipboard and on the back maybe have some sort of little, mailing label. We probably could have done this too, but we didn't. Something that says, 2017 Capital Region Youth Count. That'll help kind of maybe also give a little validity because we don't have any shirts, we don't have any other things. So you're basically your volunteers and your leads and everybody are going out there in their clothes of choice, whatever it is, would be a little disconnected. But if we can have some, continuity with what we're actually doing, and the kids can see that it's actually something that is somewhat official, even though we're not completely official.
I will also be posting this webinar both to this link, the Continuum of Care Resources, as well as the Advisory on Youth Homelessness, that website, so you can review this later. I should have it up by the end of the day, if not tomorrow at the latest. So you can share it with your volunteers. If you missed it, if you're having issues with audio, you can also re-listen to certain sections. But yeah, I think that's it for data collection.
Yeah, just to reinforce what Sam just said there is that the intention of the webinar was rather than gather several in-person trainings that we would try to do, we're going to go with a webinar. Please, leads, share this with any volunteer who's going to go out and or staff members who are going to go out to give surveys. We really want them to have the benefit of what the overall picture is, all the information we share today, and this question and answer session if we have them. So we can lead right into that. So does anybody have any questions they want to bring up? Anything about the survey? Anything about the youth count? Please chime in.
Okay, I have a question. It's Laura.
Excellent. Laura.
So, what if someone is, looks younger than they are, and you find out they're like 28 years old or something?
Totally fine. I think it's at the top there that we, within that first question, You just understand as soon as you have the birth date, you realize that they're over. You say thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and then we'll have to move on. So you actually, once you find out that they're over 21, the survey really won't give us anything other than
Don't we go to 24? Because
24.
HUD goes to 24.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, HUD
All
goes
right.
up to 24.
All right. So we're changing the date all of a sudden. I'm sorry, that's my fault. I think I was going off of things from the past. So we're going 24. So 13 to 24. 13 to 24. Sorry about that.
Okay, so the
But
target age is 13 to 24, and then if you find out immediately, sometimes maybe a lead-in question could be, how old are you? And then if you find out that they're too old, then you say thank you for your time and move on.
Yes.
Okay, all right, cool.
Thank you.
I have a question from a school perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If I, as a school homeless liaison, is interviewing the students that are known to me in school, I'd want to share with agencies in the community who I'm talking to, or is that you're going to handle that because of the initials, and if there's duplicates, you'll know who they are?
Yes. Okay. And just as clarity, if it'd be wonderful if homeless liaisons wanted to ask the survey to students they were on their caseload or new in school. Not a requirement. We were mostly looking for statistical data from the liaisons, but if the opportunity exists to ask students on the 13th, be wonderful to get that data. But then, yes, the initials and date of birth will hopefully help us deduplicate.
So then I must need clarity because I was not able to sign into this webinar. I've had great difficulty and only been able to sign in quite recently to it.
Okay.
So you must have spoken about that in the beginning. So maybe I could speak to Samantha after this to find out what you're saying. I thought you wanted homeless liaisons to complete the surveys.
We would love it.
Saying.
We would love it, but not a requirement. Not a requirement. You can speak to Sam afterwards. Yes, we have a spreadsheet that we can email. That was basically, and this may help other liaisons who are on the call, or we'll get on it later, is that we're really just looking for, it's an Excel spreadsheet, pretty simple, total caseload. I think that's where I got my 21 from. Yeah, 13 to 21 within the district and going to school, total number of homeless students, and then the second part of those students, how many are actually unaccompanied. Because we know there's a lot of youth that are registered homeless who are still with parents and doubled up, things like that. So.
Would you mind saying what county are you from?
Columbia County.
Oh, okay.
Great, and did you receive an email from our youth pit count mailbox from Gmail?
Yes.
Okay, you did. So you received that initial email that we sent with the letter and the little Excel spreadsheet?
I didn't get the spreadsheet, but maybe it is there. I did get the Dear School District Homeless Liaison, though.
Okay, good. Yes, because there should have been an Excel attachment that is, it's very short. It's basically one line where you go across and you just fill in the data based on male, female, and accompanied or not. So, what is your name? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Laura, that was Laura for reminder email to liaisons with that Excel spreadsheet.
And look for that on Tuesday of next week. And
Correct.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Great question.
All right. Looks like
thank
we're
you,
all good.
everyone.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, everybody. Good luck. Have a great time with this youth count, and hopefully meet a lot of youth. Good job, everybody.
Yeah, I think that went really well.
Good format to do it.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you've done this.